We are your Unit 6 judges. My name is Tom Tinder. I'm an attorney in Charleston, West Virginia.
Good morning. I'm Steve Frenzik. I'm a retired professor of political science from the U.S. Naval Academy.
Hello, my name is tomvontz, and you might be able to tell from the logo behind me. I teach at Kansas State University.
Please introduce yourselves.
Hello, my name is Jackson Hopper.
Hello, my name is Amy Herfel.
Good morning, my name is Sophia Fahlbusch.
Good morning, my name is Caroline Bucher.
Hello, my name is Molly Bucher, and we represent Unit 6 at Highlands High School from the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and our teacher is Miss Megan Boyman-Hennies.
We are very pleased to be your judges and look forward to a great discussion. The question, of course, is number one. In 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King said, quote, "Never in the history of this nation have so many people been arrested for the cause of freedom and human dignity," close quote. What lessons can be learned from the Children's March in Birmingham, Alabama? What is civic engagement and what is its significance in American history? What responsibility, if any, do schools have to promote civic engagement? You may begin.
Following the Children's March in Birmingham, Alabama on May the 2nd, 1963, Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy stated, "What Bucher did down there and the dogs and the hoses and the pictures with the Negroes is what created a feeling in the United States that more needed to be done."
The Children's March on Birmingham involved over 3,000 young Black people and began in Jefferson County. On May 2nd, the children converged on the city, instilled with Martin Luther King Jr.'s philosophy of nonviolent demonstration so that they could persuade city officials and businessmen to desegregate. At the direction of the police chief, Bucher, around 1,000 young people were arrested. When jails began to overflow, hoses and police dogs were used against the children.
The images of violence against the demonstrating young people were spread across the newspapers the next day. Under intense public pressure, the Birmingham city government negotiated a truce with Dr. King, and on May 10th, Connor was removed from his position.
The success of the Children's March teaches several valuable lessons that can be applied even today. First and foremost, to emphasize the value of civil disobedience, which Martin Luther King described as a type of constructive, nonviolent tension which is necessary for growth.
Secondly, it demonstrated the power the media has in an issue. It is doubtful that without the heavy weight of the public against Bucher and his actions due to the coverage of the event, including images of children being brutalized, that he would have been removed from his position.
This goes to show the importance of freedom of press, speech, and assembly as protected by the First Amendment. Without these rights, the people would have not been able to gather and protest of the injustice they faced, and the media would not have been able to serve as a check of the power of the government.
These lessons can be translated to modern examples like March for Our Lives, which is a youth protest against gun violence. They exercise their right of assembly with their protests and walkouts, and utilize free speech by calling out to the government to pass further regulations and encourage others on platforms like social media to join their fight.
Civic engagement is highly encouraged and enforced through civic education courses. However, since U.S. history classes are not required to be taught in schools, many students have shown a lack of understanding and knowledge in American history. In 2018, the Woodrow Wilson National Fellowship Foundation released a survey that examined 41,000 respondents on how well they knew American history. Only 33% passed, demonstrating the lack of civic education within America today, which plays a major role in setbacks on students' civic engagement.
Schools have a responsibility to promote civic engagement, but currently lack the sense of urgency to promote students to express their opinions. According to census.gov, only 36% of people aged 18 to 19 voted in the 2018 election. This proves that students leaving high school lack a sense of motivation and a sense of urgency to voice their personal stances.
Young people are, however, still being encouraged to be civically engaged through volunteerism. For example, amidst the national crisis concerning COVID-19, Citizen University has pulled together students and younger people to create food drives, deliver food to food banks, translate COVID-19 information into different languages, as well as provide mental health services and mutual aid boards through Google Docs. This form of self-interest directly impacts our civic engagement as it is encouraging the aid of our public well-being.
James Madison's Federalist No. 10 cites a lack of civic participation as the most dangerous thing to united America. Madison argues that when a majority is included in a faction, the form of popular government enables it to sacrifice the rights of other citizens, concluding that in order to avoid this, one must take in a greater variety of parties and interests. As a unit, we agree with that. With a greater emphasis on civic education in schools, the violence caused in these events can be minimized or avoided altogether. Thank you. We are ready for your questions.
Thank you, Steve.
In what ways does the Constitution either promote or tend to thwart civic engagement?
In the Constitution, in the 26th Amendment, voting is encouraged, which promotes civic engagement.
How about any limits? Are there any limits, constitutional limits on how we engage? Let's switch to another topic. Let's go on to civil disobedience. Is civil disobedience always a justified form of civic engagement?
I would say civil disobedience, as long as it is civil and it's not creating greater harm to other people, such as protesters in the streets right now. There's been recorded evidence of them blocking ambulances on their way to hospital in the COVID-19 pandemic. I would say that is harm because it's hurting other people, but as long as all the other regular emergency functions can get by, I would say that it's fine.
Any other limits that any of you would place on civil disobedience? I mean, what about if you didn't like the speed limit in front of the schoolhouse? So would it be appropriate to use civil disobedience to get that law changed?
I think in that type of situation, it is not appropriate because you could put other people at risk. For example, if you chose to speed up in that zone, if someone was to cross the street or someone was to get in your way, you could put them in harm's way.
Yeah, to build off of what my colleague Amy was previously stating, it's all about the limits of what it means to protect your rights, but also the public safety. If their action is not inherently prohibiting the safety of other people and other citizens, then it's okay to civically protest or disobediently protest.
And civil disobedience is used to show the injustice of the law. So in the speed limit example, that's not really a moment where civil disobedience would be appropriate because it's not an injustice. It has a purpose for being there.
Thank you. You talked about voting. Some countries have compulsory voting. Should we have compulsory voting in the United States? Why or why not?
No, we should not have compulsory voting in the United States. One country that does have it is Australia, and they only saw a 7% increase in total voting, but also a huge increase in other problems like incomplete ballots, and it really just didn't have that much of a good effect to outweigh the what some people would feel is a violation of our rights of speech. Like not voting would be a right of speech just as much as voting would be.
Further, working off of what Amy just said, countries such as Venezuela and the Netherlands once had compulsory voting, but then they abolished it, which I think shows that in a democracy, if you want to encourage voting, it should be a choice rather than force.
Thank you.
Let me explore the demonstrations against the lockdown in the current COVID-19. You said that wasn't a good idea. Why is that not a good example of civic engagement, and should public officials pay attention to them?
Well, it is going directly against public safety and public health. And as my colleague stated earlier, they are blocking emergency services from coming through. And they're also causing nurses and medical staff to also forego their current posts to be able to block that from going out of hand. So it is definitely shown to be a public disturbance, not only just among average citizens, but also among the medical staff that need to be using their job to be saving lives.
Didn't Bull Connor use that same justification though in Birmingham? Didn't he say we didn't want these protests because there's safety issues here?
Yeah, on the other hand, I would say that it is a right of, they do have the right to protest this if they feel it's fine. I just feel like especially in the case of like blocking the streets is dangerous, but if they are going to do it safely in front of a Capitol in a public space where people can still get through, that is perfectly fine. And I understand their concerns because as the 10th Amendment, it is the state's rights really to decide constitutionally what should happen in this pandemic.
Other than voting and political engagement, how are young people in particular civically engaged today? Can you give me some examples?
Social media plays a huge role in how we communicate our opinions. We can see as far as communicating with public officials, political officials on the internet is very, very important. Looking at news channels online is also very important for young people to establish what their political affiliations are and to establish their opinions publicly.
Also, volunteerism is usually a good way for younger people to be involved, and there's a lot of movements out there that are run by younger people, such as March for Our Lives or the Sunrise Movement, and they end up working specifically with political candidates to get people more involved and get their platform out there, and young people can really help to promote that.
What is the distinction between civic engagement and belonging to a group, regardless of its purpose?
Civic engagement is questioning the motives of your government, and blindly belonging to a party or to a belief system is where you will go with whatever they say just because there's a person saying it. The civic engagement is about a belief. Blindly following somebody is about a person or a people.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you, students. Just hang in here on the main room while the judges are going to give you some feedback.
Marcy, okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to start and say I thought you did an excellent job with your presentation. The background, mentioning the Federalist 10, and then I thought you did a good job in responding to our questions. Let me commend you all for participating in this, particularly during these extraordinary times. Congratulations to you.
Thank you very much.
I thought you did a great job, both in the oral presentation and the question follow-up. You had some good data. I kind of like data, and so I'm glad you brought the data in there to back up your assertions. So you gave us a good logical link of why you had the beliefs that you have. Thank you.
Yeah, I was really impressed with your opening statement. I think my colleagues were too. You said some things that we hadn't heard yet, and gave us some specific statistics about our lack of civic knowledge, for example. And it seemed like in your response too, you weren't just concerned with engagement for the sake of engagement, but you wanted kind of informed engagement. You wanted people that knew something that were engaged, which I wholeheartedly agree with. Yeah, I thought you did a great job. And then you eventually got around to the civil disobedience question, right? I mean, on its face, you look at the Children's March, you think, geez, that was great. And it was a great example of civil disobedience. But even Dr. King said, it's not always justified. It's only justified when it's an unjust law. And I think it was Molly that eventually got around to that, which was great. And then the second part was, King said in the letter from Birmingham jail, you've got to have tried to have worked within the system to change an unjust law before civil disobedience is ultimately justified. So, but I thought you did a fantastic job. We heard some things from you that we had not heard from other groups, and excellent job.
I liked your contemporary examples. They were very, very, very strong and very compelling.
I did too.